Will the Miami Hurricanes win, or will they make a statement against Wake Forest?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We made it. I'm Alex Dono, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC, and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Speaking of FanDuel, Miami Hurricanes coming off the bye week, which came after their first loss of the season. Got to regroup, refocus, assignment, alignment. Those are key words Mario Cristobal threw out there as things they have to focus on. And the odds makers are expecting a huge bounce back this week against Wake Forest. We'll talk about that on this Loaded Friday episode. We'll talk about some recruiting updates because there's a certain flip candidate who's expected to be at two places at once on Saturday. Will he be in Miami Gardens or will he be in Gainesville? We'll talk about our predictions for this Wake Forest game, also the challenges that the Demon Deacons present. And let's bring on our very good friend who's back with us for another great Friday, Rudy Tomarchio, old colleague of mine in media. He's a former Sebastian the Ibis, so I know he's going to be charged up. 12 noon, senior day, Rudy, tomorrow. Is Miami going to win, or are they going to win big against the Demon Deacons?
You got to hope they win big, right? I mean, we need something to be thankful for with Thanksgiving coming up next week. So let's go big, especially after a bye week with all the adjustments that hopefully they've made.
Yeah, Hurricanes are 24.5-point favorites on FanDuel. Now, the last time Miami won a game by more than that was going back to the USF game. Now, they've had some other close ones, like they beat Florida State by 22 points. They beat Duke by 22 points. Florida State, not so much, but Duke is better than Wake Forest. Florida State probably isn't. And you look at some of the numbers for this one, Rudy. Let's start with Wake Forest's defense. Their offense is much better than their defense, but you look at this and you say, okay, Cam Ward, who's got the best numbers of any quarterback in college football this year, most touchdown passes, most yardage, most total touchdowns. You're going up against a defense that ranks 118th in total defense, 128th in passing defense. That's out of 133 teams. The Demon Deacons give up 282 passing yards per game. They're also 82nd in rushing defense, which is not very good, giving up 156 yards per game. So, Miami's offense was okay, but obviously not great against Georgia Tech. Rudy, will this be the slump buster?
I mean, yeah, yes, of course. I think it'll be a slump buster, but at the same time, I think you ran into so many different issues at Georgia Tech that you're just not going to have against Wake Forest. One, you're playing at home, you're playing on natural grass. I don't think that can be said enough in terms of how artificial turf can mess with a team. You have an indoor practice facility, but there's just something different about playing in a new environment like that. Georgia Tech used to have one of the nicest fields in college football, so that was unfortunate to see, but look, Miami struggled in that game for a few different reasons. Yeah, there was a few, flags that probably should have been called on some deeper routes where Miami players were open and being held. This is a great defense to bounce back with. And if you're Miami, you have to play with your hair on fire, both offensively and defensively. So if you can get, up 14-0, 21-0, you should be smooth sailing for the rest of the afternoon.
What about the test for Miami's defense? Wake Forest, they're average. They're seventh in the ACC out of 17 teams offensively. I want to pass on a note because I know earlier this week I mentioned, we weren't sure about the status of Hank Bachmeier, the Wake Forest starting quarterback. Now, Wake Forest is not a team that gets a whole lot of coverage, so I had to dig a little deep for this, but Bachmeier is going to play. It's been confirmed. He missed the second half of their last game with an injury, but he's going to be back this week. He's seventh in the ACC in passing yards this season, Rudy. And, Wake Forest, there's some challenges with the slow mesh offense that they run. So it's a different look from what Miami has seen throughout the year. So what would you like to see from Lance Guidry's unit?
Well, I think everyone's going to be holding their collective breaths on Saturday, tomorrow afternoon, just to see if they line up properly. Because as much as you could talk about hand signals and the way communication has been difficult in the secondary, the thing that's been kind of driving me nuts for most of the year is just the pre-snap movement, the pre-snap alignment. They talked about alignment all over the place. And I know we haven't spoken since prior to the Georgia Tech game, but the thing that drove me crazy was that final drive where, Georgia Tech got the first down to run out the clock. And you had to see poor Kiko Mauinoa talk to a couple guys in the secondary, a couple defensive backs, and say, no one's going to go cover that receiver top of the sideline. All right, cool. I guess I'll run out there and go cover this guy. So seeing that kind of issue all season has been kind of the big struggle for me. So if we can actually see our guys line up and, set up in formation, granted, most offenses don't snap the ball at their first alignment, but you got to give them a look that, forces them to adjust. If they can do that and match 11 players and 11 players, that's a pretty good start coming off the bye week.
Yeah, and a couple of quotes, Miami coming off the bye week. Here's a couple things that Cam Ward had to say on Wednesday during his media availability. He says everybody already knew, what they had to address over the bye. He said the game 2 weeks ago, that's talk about the Georgia Tech game, you could see the stuff we really had to work on. We had been lacking for pretty much a lot of the past couple games before that, but we finally got exposed, he said. We got better at what we needed to during the bye week. Now we're trying to get the W this week. He says it's been lingering for a long time. You finally get exposed because of the loss, he said. We're trying to get right every day. The urgency we had doesn't change no matter who we play because every team in the country is beatable. This week, it's just been on a different level. Talking about the urgency in practice. And it's like, it's a balancing act, Rudy, because Miami coaches and players, they approach every single game like a 1-game season. So it's like, you should always have the same level of urgency, but I feel like the urgency's got to be on another level this week coming off a loss.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously the 1-0 mentality, the Miami Heat piece of like the next thing is the most important thing is relevant. But at the same time, when you watch some of the preparation, you're watching what the level of play has looked like in the past couple of games. They might be prepared, but at the same time, they're just, you have to be prepared for what's going to be different. And I feel like Miami has not adjusted well when teams do something totally different from what they look like on film. And a lot of it is just basic X's and O's. I think Lance Guidry, for all the criticism he's gotten, has been very, honest in most of his media availability and saying, look, some of this stuff is high school ball. It's just basic X's and O's and assignments. And if you're not going to be sturdy with that, if you're not going to be sound with that, it's going to affect you. It's going to break for big plays, which is what we've seen throughout the course of the season when they do miscommunicate. So I don't question Miami's preparation. I know they're working hard. We know they want to make the college football playoff. They're 18 to 27-year-old kids, thanks to Cam McCormick. They're going to make mistakes, but they want to win. What's the Herman Edwards quote? You play to win the game.
To win the game.
Yeah, they're obviously trying to do that. It's a matter of just getting out of their own heads in those situations because, I don't know how many years now this has been. We're up-tempo. Offense has hurt Miami, and if they get hit for a big play, they don't substitute personnel. It's like, oh, we got you in a personnel that we really want. We're usually giving up. The joke I've been having with a buddy of mine, Chris, is we play Ricky Bobby defense. If you don't get a 3 and out, you're usually driving the length of the field for a touchdown. Yeah, so you're either first 100%. Or you're last. Yeah. So hopefully that changes. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. And this is a good matchup to see that change happen because Wake Forest has struggled against everybody in the ACC this year. I know we're both glass half full kind of guys, rosy colored glasses guys. So feeling good for this weekend.
Well, yeah, and we got a couple of different things that Mario Cristobal brought up on the coaches show late in the week, including statuses of injured players, because everyone wants to know. Cristobal shared some insight on the challenge that Wake Forest is going to present. And I'm not completely sleeping on Wake Forest because, Rudy, we can't sleep on anybody. I mean, Miami has played down to the competition, not just this season, but over the past several years. So, but we know what's in front of us, right? If Miami beats Wake Forest and they beat Syracuse, they're in the ACC championship game. You win that ACC championship game against almost certainly SMU because SMU's got to lose out to not get there. But if you win the ACC championship game, you've got probably a 3 seed and a first-round bye in the college football playoff. So, folks, we're only getting started. You want to keep it locked right here on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. I'm so happy the Prize Picks is with us. I've been playing Prize Picks since 2021. Folks, this is the best way to get in on the action. Prize Picks gets you real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. So, guys, this is daily fantasy on steroids. So you select 2, 3, 4, 5 players and just predict if they're going to go more or less than on their stat projections. And what I love about Prize Picks is you can mix and match those things. You can select 2 college football players, 2 NFL players, an NBA player, all on the same selection. I love the mixing and matching aspect of it. It makes it so much more fun. And yeah, you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. I love that. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value to your lineups. Guys, I'm telling you, you have to sign up today. Making your selections, by the way, it takes less than 60 seconds. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download Prize Picks, use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word. Get up to $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch on this Friday. Make sure you make Locked On College Football your next listen. I was watching my guy Spencer McLaughlin, talking about Miami. He thinks Miami could win big this weekend. They got something to prove against Wake Forest. So Mario Cristobal talked about the Demon Deacons, Rudy. He says they're challenging in a lot of different ways. He said, certainly offensively, they pose a big challenge because of that slow mesh concept, trying to play the run while your RPO routes are going down the field, 18, 20, 25-yard shot plays as well. That's difficult, he says. Your gap integrity is at a premium. They have a lot of talent. We have to make sure we're at our best. And yeah, the words gap integrity have not always gone together well for Miami's defense this year.
No, gap integrity and also setting the edge have been two things that I think we've been screaming about since the first game against Florida with that one broken run that went for 70 yards. So yeah, those are the things that could drive you nuts. And it's something that you got to hope that it's not like there's a major conceptual change that needs to be made. Setting the edge is common college football defensive philosophy. So if you can do that, you should be fine in this game. It's just a matter of, especially with that offense going up, overall averaging over 450 yards a game. I'm curious as to how, I don't know, I didn't see this week what the injury updates were. Had they mentioned anything about Jacoby George? I know his hand was kind of bothering him in that last series against Georgia Tech.
I would say on him, no news is probably good news because Cristobal has been talking about the same players and he hasn't brought up George. So I would imagine he's going to play. That's good. I'd forgotten about that, but you're right. He had a hand issue in that game. I'd totally forgotten about that. But the injuries that Cristobal has brought up a couple times throughout the week are Ryan Rodriguez, offensive lineman who we haven't seen since week 1. Damari Brown, corner, we haven't seen since week 1, and Elijah Alston, who we haven't seen in recent games on the defensive line. He's referred to all 3 of them as game time decisions. Like they'll probably go through warm-ups, maybe with the intention to play. He said if any of them don't play this week, they'll definitely be ready to go by next week. I hear Popo Aguirre should be good to go this week. He's missed a little time as well. And so, yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on those guys, Rudy? Especially like in the case of guys like Damari Brown and Ryan Rodriguez who haven't played since week 1. I kind of wonder if they'll be ready to dive like head first into the deep end or if they're gonna kind of ease their ways back in.
Yeah, I think it's essential to get playing time. I mean, regardless whether they start or if they play a significant number of snaps in the game, if you're going to play for the ACC, if you're going to play for the college football playoff, you need to have these guys back and getting noticeable reps. And Damari Brown should hopefully help you solve some problems. If there are communication issues with the secondary, having somebody who is a little bit more experienced and who has been sitting a lot, he should probably know all of the signals inside and out. I'm sure he's been very excited to try to get back in there. So in terms of what he brings, you're bringing somebody who's a little extra focused, who's just been, probably hungry to to get back in the action. Ryan Rodriguez is a guy that I don't think we could speak enough of, given how the line played in the first couple of games this year, including at UF. So granted, Miami's offensive line is the least of their problems. Yeah, they give up a couple of sacks, but a lot of that is just trying to force the ball down the field. Cam Ward working his magic. And something I noticed, I don't know if you noticed it either, but Miami seems to be really, really great in max protect when you leave your running back, primarily Damian Martinez, back to block. And then, if the play breaks down, he's your first outlet. So in terms of some of that Cam Ward magic is having either a tight end or a running back that's in the backfield with you that, comes open late. So I think that's great for helping the offense move. I don't think it's something necessarily you have to worry about against Wake Forest. At least I hope not. But it is something that I think personnel-wise would be interesting to see the Miami offense get back to later this season.
So I look at, again, I'm looking at the FanDuel odds here. Miami favored by 24.5 points at home, minus 3,000 on the money line. The over-under is 66.5 points. So how many is Miami going to score? I guess would be the question, Rudy, because we know, even if we could say, hey, wait, Miami should be able to win this game easily. Maybe they still give up 20 plus points because that's kind of been the trend with our defense. But do you think Miami can score maybe back in the 40s after only scoring 28 points or only 23 points, I should say, last time out?
Yeah, I mean, I would say they can get into the 40s for sure. For my issue though, it's the over 66, you said 66.5.
Yeah, 66.5. Yeah.
I just don't see that happening. And it's one of those things where don't get me wrong. When you're Miami and Miami fans are always hoping like, oh, I hope they come out angry. They're going to put up like 70 points on somebody. That's just not really what Miami does. They put up a lot of points, but it's all about how the game kind of dictates itself. Like you'll notice, we'll know probably in the first, I don't know, let's say by the end of the first quarter, we'll know the way that game is going to go, whether they let up 60, 70 points, or if they're scoring 40 something. I think it's going to be closer to the low 40s and probably give up, 17, 20 points, something like that. Probably look a little close in the beginning like it has, and Miami make some defensive adjustments and hopefully pitch a shutout in the second half.
Let's talk about key players for Miami this week. I mean, if you start on offense, obviously it's been a lot of guys who have been playing well throughout the season. Cam Ward is the best in the nation, in my opinion. He's the straw that stirs the drink. We would like to see him, maybe sometimes take what's in front of you, right? I mean, obviously he's at his best when he's improvising and going for the jugular, but sometimes maybe passing up on the checkdowns is not always the right decision. I think he's got some awareness on that. I would like to continue to see more from the tight end position because I don't think we ever use Elijah Arroyo enough, quite frankly. I mean, every time that guy gets the football, he's magic, like that 76-yard touchdown reception he had last time out. Xavier Restrepo is always a key, but anyone on either side of the football, Rudy, you can give me both if you want to, offense and defense. Anybody you feel like really needs to step up in this game?
I mean, the offense runs with Cam. It's whether he's having a good game or a bad game, everything goes through Cam Ward. The running plays that they're adopting, he's looking at that and he's handing that ball off, or he's, keeping it and throwing it. So it's going to be on Cam again. Always has been. That's part of why we have him. So I'm going to say that's a safe choice, but at the same time, it's a logical one. Defensively, I want to stick with the defensive line because I want to make sure that an edge is actually set and that they have contained, because I think you're going to make your defense's lives a little bit easier if you can just keep everything inside. If you can actually, keep a boundary and you can force everybody to come in. If you're like talking about a running play that's running to a sideline, if you could force a cutback and bring that play inside, it should make Kiko's life easier. If Popo Aguirre plays, it makes his life easier. Wes Basaint's life easier. The secondary's life easier because you're getting pressure on the quarterback. So if you want me to pick one, I mean, look, Ruben Bain has been great. He's been double teamed. I'm not going to say he's the guy that needs to step up because I think he's attracting a lot of the blocking assignments already. And look, watch him play. How many times is his jersey getting messed up or there's hands in his face? Let's put it on somebody else. Let's put it on Tyler Barron. Let's say a guy that needs to step up would be him because it's going to alleviate some pressure off of Ruben Bain. And look, if you can just show that you're reaching without getting a face mask, without taking some silly, personal conduct, unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, that I think is going to go a long way. So let's go with Tyler Barron.
I like it. Well, Coming up next, got a couple of recruiting updates for you, including when we were growing up, I don't know if this is still a thing now, but we used to read those Where's Waldo books. Like for this week, it's not Where's Waldo, it's Where's Ben Hanks Jr. Where is he going to be? You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. It's Friday. It's the weekend. That means it is Z-Biotics time, my friend. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Guys, this stuff works. Here's how to use it. Step 1, for best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, pace yourself, hydrate, get a good night's sleep. And step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege and use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at checkout for 15% off. We're also proudly brought to you by FanDuel. Guys, if you think Miami's going to make a statement this weekend and win not just big, but win huge, you look at the Hurricanes, favored by 24.5 points against Wake Forest. You can find that at FanDuel, over under 66.5. It is all there for you. And dive into that NFL action with America's #1 sportsbook, because right now on FanDuel, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. I am Alex Dono. We got our special guest, Rudy Tomarchio, with us. So, Rudy, we're all going to be anxiously wondering tomorrow, is Florida Gators 4-star verbal commit cornerback Ben Hanks, will he be in Gainesville to watch Ole Miss beat the Gators, or will he be in Miami Gardens watching Miami take on Wake Forest? Because there are reporters who cover both teams who think he's going to be at their game, right? He's on the visitors list to be in Gainesville for that game against Ole Miss. He's also on the visitors list to be at Miami. Of course, Miami has been putting in, months of work in recruiting, probably years of work actually in recruiting Hanks, but months of work in trying to flip him from Florida. So, Rudy, it seems like the Gators, they've definitely found some momentum in that win against LSU. We hope that comes to an end against Ole Miss, but they've solidified their situation a little bit by backing Billy Napier, right? So now that there's no longer the uncertainty about his job status, it's definitely improved their recruiting position for the time being.
It's definitely helped. And you mentioned Where's Waldo. The other one I'm thinking of is we just need to find 2 more people and we could be a barbershop quartet and saying, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Ben Hanks Jr. has a good little ring to it. Let's break this out a little quick. I don't want to be too much of a homer, but let's say Ben Hanks is a Florida legacy, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Ole Miss and Florida, after what Florida did to LSU, it's an entertaining game. So if I'm looking at this objectively, I'm thinking he's going to watch this game in Gainesville versus coming down to Miami. If Florida just had completely, packed in the season and didn't beat LSU and just got blown out the rest of their games, I think he's probably coming down to Miami Gardens and watching Miami play Wake Forest as a more realistic perspective of, let's see what the rest of the season looks like for Miami. It's just a compelling matchup, and he can go there with his dad. And when the Gators get blown out, he can look at dad and say, "You want me to go here?" I've already seen this before. Am I going to watch like Ole Miss players like talking to me from the recruiting section, having some girl shove Jackson Dart and Lane Kiffin out of the way? For me, I'd rather him go up there, because if that becomes a train wreck, go watch it. You don't have to worry about coming to Hard Rock, because I'm a little concerned about the attendance that's going to happen from this weekend. Miami hasn't had a lot of attention on them. They're coming off of a loss and a bye week, and it's a holiday weekend. So I don't expect that place to be very full. And look,
it's a noon game, and we know what noon games are like there. It's just,
and look, we didn't really talk about this either when it came to the Duke game, but Miami's crowd was not good for the most of that first half against Manny Diaz. That was something that the team did a good job of getting, the fans back into it, but that shouldn't be happening with a team that's ranked inside the top 10 and competing for the college football playoff. So I'd rather him be up there anyway. Deal with that environment, and hopefully it's a blowout loss for the Gators, and he can come back and watch us when we play in the ACC championship game, or hopefully in the college football playoff.
All right, so we're looking at what's going on in Baton Rouge. It's been a really, really rough season for LSU, and Brian Kelly couldn't happen to a nicer guy, right?
Words right out of my mouth.
I hate to see Brian Kelly. What a great, upstanding individual. I hate to see him struggling. Obviously Miami, and it's not just Miami, has their eyes on DJ Pickett, 5-star LSU commit at defensive back. He's very much wanted by Miami. He's got the family ties to the U. He's also very much wanted by Georgia and Florida, or other teams that are in the mix to try to flip him. LSU just lost their star quarterback commit, 5-star Bryce Underwood. I think it was just Thursday night. He flips from LSU to Michigan. So I wonder now if there's blood in the water and people are coming for guys like DJ Pickett.
You got to hope so. I mean, particularly for Miami, who's been working on DJ the entire season, and he's got so many family ties to the Miami Hurricanes. And look, realistically, outside of OJ Frederick and, Damari Brown, Miami has issues with quarterbacks in the secondary. They could use everybody they could get. So if you're likely going to get playing time if you can compete. All you're asking for is competition, and, iron sharpens iron on that side. So you may have hard practices, but if you're going to a program that realistically, Miami and the ACC get a lot of criticism from the national media about not having a hard schedule. But when you look at the strength of records and the strength of schedule, it's actually not too bad. There's something to be said for playing in this conference and not in the SEC. That helps your stock. You could stand out a little bit more. So why not come to Miami?
You brought up OJ Frederick, and I want to give him a little love here. So this was a cool post by David Hale on X about OJ. I feel like this. Let me see if I can, for those watching on YouTube, let me see if I can make this a little larger, because the font was straining my eyes. I'm getting older though. But David Hale writes, Miami's DBs have been a work in progress, but not OJ Frederick. He has the lowest opponent QBR of any ACC cornerback, 3.6. Has allowed just 26% completions. Has the lowest yards to target allowed, 2.0 in the ACC, and particularly impressive for a true freshman, the 5th lowest target rate in the league. So it's obviously Miami's secondary is a double-edged sword, Rudy, like you brought up. There's been a lot of bad this year, but if you look at OJ Frederick, who's becoming a bona fide island out there in the ACC, and we have similar hopes for Damari Brown. Like it's tougher to assess Damari because he's only played in like 2 quarters so far this year, but we like Damari Brown's development. He might be back this week, and even obviously we want to land Hanks, Pickett, or both, but even if Miami doesn't, they have some really good defensive backs committed in this class, like Chris Ewald, Bryce Fitzgerald, Jabari Antoine, Hilton Drake Stubbs, Amari Wallace. Like, they have some really good DBs committed. But this is the area, Rudy, that Mario Cristobal and Chevitz Jackson and Lance Guidry are really trying to attack in recruiting, because they understand the same way 2 years ago they attacked offensive line, defensive line last year. You need to attack defensive back with that sort of intensity in recruiting this cycle.
Absolutely. I mean, look at the evolution of defenses in college football too. You're not really seeing 4-3 looks anymore. You're running a lot more nickel. You're running more dime packages. So you're having 1 or 2 linebackers out there. So not only having corners that can cover, defensive backs that can cover is important, because you never know if you're going to have a tight end on you, if you're going to have a running back on you. Team speed is just something that's really necessary, and you're going to get a lot of that from your defensive backs. And it's something that, frankly, Miami, I haven't really seen a lot of team speed this year. I feel like they get, and look, some of it is obviously the alignment and the positioning, but at the same time, you got to be able to chase somebody down. And I don't really see our guys chasing people down too often this season. I'd like them to just meet in the backfield versus having to chase somebody down, but beggars can't be choosers at this point.
Well, and when you talk about chasing somebody down, it reminds me, Frederick, there was that play when Jamal Haynes had that big run where it looked like he was going to score a touchdown against for Georgia Tech, and the guy who chased him down was OJ Frederick. No one else was going to catch him from behind, and then OJ was there in a flash of lightning.
Yeah, the only team speed I could think of really is Elijah Arroyo, and that's the wrong side of the
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, if we could play him two ways, maybe he could win the Heisman.
I mean, look, all he needs to do is record like one tackle, and he's probably a Heisman candidate if you play both ways, right? That's how that works statistically.
Before I let you run, give me your prediction. I already went on record earlier this week and said 48-24 Miami, which would be a half point shy of covering the spread. So there'd be a lot of frustrated Hurricanes fans if they win by exactly 24 points, but that's what I got. What do you got for Wake Forest?
Look, if that comes true, I want you to have like a Scott Van Pelt style reaction to having a bad beat. I'm going to say 45-20 is going to be my prediction. I'm being optimistic. I think they might force a couple field goals, hopefully, to make that happen. But it probably looks close in the first quarter because what game this year has not looked close in the first quarter, where even if you go up by 14 or 21, there's always something that seems to happen. So I'm going to be optimistic and say 45-20.
I like it. You make sure you follow Rudy on X at Rudy Tomarchio. Make sure you follow us at Locked On Canes. And guys, if you're watching us on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. Let's throw those U's up before we get out of here. Folks, we will talk to you again next time. I might have another episode today, in fact, because I'm chomping at the bit to talk to the postcast king before tomorrow's game. So we'll talk to you guys later today on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.